I want to pass along from a question from a congressman who does not represent the border, but he is in Texas, Dan Crenshaw, who's a new member of Congress. He's been very outspoken in favor of the president's agenda on the border, particularly.
Right.
And he wanted to ask you, he tweeted this, I'm just passing it along. It's not something he didn't text me. Would you, if you could, would you take the wall down now, here?
Yes.
Like you have a wall. Like,
absolutely.
Knock it down.
I'd take the wall down.
And do you think the city, if there's a referendum here in this city, that would pass?
I do. Here's what we know. After the Secure Fence Act, we have built 600 miles of wall and fencing on a 2,000-mile border. What that has done is not in any demonstrable way made us safer. It's cost us tens of billions of dollars to build and to maintain, and it has pushed migrants and asylum seekers and refugees to the most inhospitable, the most hostile stretches of the U.S.-Mexico border, ensuring their suffering and death. More than 4,000 human beings, little kids, women, and children, have died. They're not in cages, they're not locked up, they're not separated, they're dead over the last 10 years as we have walled off their opportunity to legally petition for asylum, to cross in urban centers like El Paso, to be with family, to work jobs, to do what any human being should have a right to be able to do, what we would do if faced with the same circumstances they were.
The Democrats want to take down all walls along the southern border. And if they do that, you're going to have a very different country, but they're not going to do that. They wouldn't. First of all, they won't do it because they know it's wrong. They know walls are necessary, maybe more than we do, but they're playing a political game. And their new game is let's take down all walls. I saw where Beto wanted to take down walls. I said, they asked me, what do you think? I said, well, I think that's probably the end of his political career. We're doing very well in the wall. We're building a lot of wall right now. You know that?
Well, a profound moral revolution is sweeping the Democratic Party. When we say profound, we mean profound. This is like the Reformation, except instead of 95 theses, there's just one thesis. Walls are bad! Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York and Beto O'Rourke, who's on like a one-man road trip somewhere in Texas, are both running for president. And they put this new thesis in no uncertain terms. Walls must be torn down.
If you could, would you take the wall down now, here?
Yes.
Like you have a wall. Like,
absolutely.
Knock it down.
I'd take the wall down.
And do you think the city, if there's a referendum here in this city, that would pass?
I do.
The idea of dismantling some of the wall, good idea, bad idea?
Well, I'd have to ask folks in that part of the country to see whether the fencing that exists today is helpful or unhelpful. So I could look at it and see which part he means and why, and if it makes sense, I could support it.
Tear down those walls! And they're not alone in that. Young pioneer Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says a wall to protect our country is very much like another wall built to imprison a population. Listen to this.
No matter how you feel about the wall, you know, I think it's a moral abomination. I think it's like the Berlin Wall.
The Berlin Wall! What city did that divide? That's the question I want to ask AOC. Jason Nichols is a professor of African American Studies at the University of Maryland. He joins us today. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Hey, anytime.
So I was a little bit shocked. Here, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is criticizing East Germany. She's not the person I thought she was.
No, I mean, so again, when she says that walls are immoral, I think what she's not saying, and I don't think anyone believes that walls in and of themselves are immoral. I think what they're saying is that something that walls us off from our allies rather than our enemies is immoral. Somewhere where we're not being invaded. That's what makes it immoral. The fact that it's a physical manifestation of the racism that's coming out of the White House, that's what makes it immoral. Huh. You know, the fact that it's, that it's a wall.
Okay, but Beto
okay.
O'Rourke says that we should tear the walls down that exist on our southern border. Now, I'm pretty sure I understand that Beto is an extremely rich man. I think he married into a billionaire family, okay?
Did he?
So I bet you he's got some pretty stout locks on his doors at home. Why should he be allowed to have those? Why is that not racist?
Well, so,
why aren't they keeping people of color out of his house? I'm serious.
No, I don't think that's what. I don't think that's a fair comparison.
Really? Why?
I think, well, when you look at it, that area around El Paso did not really have walls for a long time. And we shouldn't even call this a wall. We know it's a gate, a fence.
Well, whatever. It's a physical barrier to keep people out.
Physical barrier. Now, that physical barrier is relatively new.
Right.
And when you go back to 1995 and you look at the trends of violent crime in El Paso, it's always been one of the safest cities in America.
Right.
So it's not like a physical barrier was built and all of a sudden people got safer. It was always a safe city.
Well, but that's absolutely right, and it's a wonderful city, by the way. El Paso is a great place with great people in it. But the city right across the river,
absolutely,
Juarez, was the most dangerous city in the hemisphere, and so they built the wall to keep the dangerous people out during the drug war. That would be fair, right? I mean, that's not racist to do that,
I understand.
Is it?
I totally understand the motivation for building that barrier, particularly, we were in a post 9/11 time where people were afraid of many different things coming from other countries. However, when we look at it statistically, before the gate, there was nothing.
Well, that's because
wasn't violent.
No, that's
even
because,
and Juarez has been violent for a very long time.
But it got really bad, and I think I'm just pulling this out of my head, but I think it's right. I think El Paso is a majority Hispanic city, and I think that wall was built with the approval of most people in El Paso, not because they don't like Hispanics, but because there was an actual threat right across the way, and it sort of served everybody. So it doesn't need to be a race dispute.
Well, the other thing is that Juarez is the Juarez of 2005 is not the Juarez of 2019. I think we can agree there that it went through a period of extreme violence, but it's not quite as violent now.
So I guess the way you're thinking about this is, if there isn't what you consider a threat, then you don't have a right to protect yourself. So Beto O'Rourke lives in a pretty safe neighborhood. Most rich people do. Why should they be allowed to lock their doors? I honestly don't understand. Why is that not racist?
Locking your doors is very different than having
a physical barrier.
What do you mean? It's keeping...
Look, you're surrounded by allies, and a locked door treats them like enemies. That's what I think the message of Beto's front door is. It's like, what, don't like me enough to let me in? Isn't the right of migration into Beto's house an absolute right?
Well, first of all, we know when it comes to migration on our southern border, people come through legal ports of entry. We also know the vast majority, and when we talk about undocumented immigration, most of the people, it used to be people said 40% of the people just overstayed a visa.
Right.
Now the new studies are saying as many as 66% of our undocumented people come on airplanes.
Yeah, I think that may be right. That may be right. So you get 33% are coming across the border. Let's start there. But I just want to get really quick. They're talking now, and AOC, the Young Pioneer, is talking about the right of migration. Why doesn't that apply to Beto's yard? And again, I'm asking, why don't I have a right of migration there? What makes him special?
Well, again, I don't know if he has a gate around his yard, but
I hope he doesn't.
I think private property is different than he's not worried.
Than a country. Okay, they're telling me I have to go, but we have an excellent conversation for next time. So if you're watching at home, or if you're a voter watching this debate, here you have the Republicans conceding that DACA recipients can stay in the country. They're not going to be deported. And you have Democrats responding by saying, no, that's not enough. We want to make sure that they can vote and bring their relatives over also. So can you understand how some people watching that might conclude that Democrats are spending more time and energy worrying about people here illegally than about American citizens?
I guess I don't make the connection, Tucker. I think that most Americans, most Texans, certainly those that I've listened to across the state, want to make sure that Dreamers can continue to remain and thrive in their communities. You have people like Saba Nafries, who I just met, who's a PhD student in mathematical biology in Texas Tech. She's a dreamer. You have people like Alonzo Guillen, who died trying to rescue his fellow Texans during the flooding after Harvey. He was a dreamer from Lufkin, Texas. I was in Booker, as Republican as it gets in Texas, and the people in Booker were concerned about Dreamers because they had just deported one of the honor roll students at Booker High School.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Just stop your speech really quick. There are a lot of good Dreamers, for sure. There are also a lot of bad ones. More Dreamers have been busted for gang membership than have joined the military. I'm not, that's not an indictment of all people here under DACA. It's just, let's just get real. These are normal people, some good, some bad. They're not all valedictorians. But the question is, there are a lot of good American citizens as well. And can you see why, when the Democrats say, we're not going to fund the government unless you allow these people to vote and bring their relatives with them, that maybe it suggests a priority that's out of sync with those of most people here? That's my only question.
Yeah, I guess I don't see that. I'll tell you, from my perspective in El Paso, Texas, the city that I represent, where I'm raising my 3 kids who are 11, 9, and 7, I want to make sure that our community continues to thrive. And one of the reasons that we are one of the safest cities in America every single year for the last 20 years is we are a city of immigrants, including dreamers, who contribute to our success and our safety. And that benefit is spread out over everybody in my community throughout the state of Texas and to this country. So it's very good for America, not just for dreamers, not just for their families. So I think most Americans see this as a net benefit.
Right. I just checked the school numbers in El Paso, the city that you're bragging about. And El Paso is a great city. But 39%, only 39% of graduating seniors from your schools are ready for college in math or English. It seems like maybe that's a bigger crisis than whether or not people here legally can bring their relatives from abroad. Wouldn't you think? I mean, again, priorities.
Yeah, I don't think working on these things is mutually exclusive. You'll find no one who's worked harder or done more, for example, for veterans in this country when it comes to mental health care access. That's a very sacred priority of mine. I've been able to make progress with Republican members on this issue. At the same time, I can advocate for the success of my community and our country at large by ensuring that those dreamers stay here. By anyone's measure, there's extraordinary positive economic benefit to those dreamers staying here, the jobs that are created, the dollars that are spent in this community.
I'm sorry, that's not, you don't have the numbers on that. You can't prove that.
I absolutely
You spend a lot of time on this question. You don't, actually, because this has been looked at a lot. And there's no evidence that bringing people who have lower than average educational attainment as they do into this country in a high-tech economy makes the rest of us richer. There's just not evidence.